Hello, welcome to Hat Trick. I am Jordan Dowler-Coltman. I am joined by Elliot Tanti and Braden Dowler-Coltman. It has been a wild end to the first round. At the time of recording this, which is somewhere around 8:40 p.m. Pacific, making it 9:40 p.m. Mountain for the two time zones. The participants of this podcast are currently residing. The Seattle Kraken and the Colorado Avalanche are at the second intermission of a 2-1 game. So we may or may not. Oh, it's 2-2. It's 2-2. All right. So we'll stay up to date on that as we go, but we're not going to talk too much about
live and alive.
We got lots else to talk about, a lot of other storylines, and obviously some Canadian angles. We're going to get to that. Let's do it. Here's topic one.
I lied. It was 2-1. It was 2-2, and I think they got the goal called back.
It happens. That happens so often these days.
All right. Well, whether or not Elliot is a reliable scorekeeper for us, we're not sure, but we'll see how it goes. Please update us, Elliot, if it does change. We know a few things, and we need to find a few more out. Obviously, there's also a game taking place Monday night. We're recording this Sunday, as I said. That game will determine who faces the Hurricanes in the second round. That game will be Game 7 between the Devils and the Rangers. So that one we don't know, but we know this. The Edmonton Oilers are through. The Maple Leafs are through. Lots of excitement and energy in Canada. Obviously, the Golden Knights made quick and pretty comfortable work of the Winnipeg Jets, who had no pushback, according to their coach. So Winnipeg is out. So we have two remaining Canadian teams. And if I had told Gary Bettman a week ago that the number one team in the league, who had set a record for wins in the regular season, would be out, that the Seattle Kraken, an expansion team, would be pushing the Colorado Avalanche right to the cliff, that the other expansion team, the Golden Knights, would be through, and that the Leafs and Oilers, two Canadian teams, are through to the second round. I'm telling you, for all those conspiracy theories out there who don't believe that Gary Bettman wants the Canadians to win, he's certainly not going to be looking very happily at some of his largest markets gone. Let's talk about the Oilers first, because obviously that's where our hearts are. Braden, it didn't start so well. We had some bumps and some moves along the way, some tense moments, a lot of one-goal games. In fact, I believe they were all, except for the Game 5 one-goal games. The LA Kings winning their 2 games in overtime. We had 3 overtime games. It was another classic series between two teams. I said this, I think, to you as the series got started. I really feel like the LA Kings were built to try to beat this team. And they got darn close to getting to the same level. But the Oilers are through in 6. A day after, how are you digesting it all?
My meal went down nicely, and the digestion is going very well. LA was a really good team, and they were much better than they were last year. So for us to, be able to come through that, not unscathed, but better for it. The difference maker though really was depth. I mean, that's we've been trying so hard to just try to find some scoring beyond the top a couple guys, and so for that to actually come to fruition in this series, it's just so great. I mean, you look at the moves that every team's kind of made around the deadline to see what impact it will actually have in the playoffs, and to see a guy like Costin, who was a trade deadline or a trade acquisition at the very beginning of the season, actually make a serious impact on the ice. It's just great. It's really, really awesome to see everything kind of come together. But man, you guys, Evan Bouchard, like a couple years ago, I was saying this might be the next Paul Coffey, and you guys all scoffed at me. And no, we're nowhere near, saying that he's going to be up in the rafters one day, but he is now pushing stats that are of the ilk of Paul Coffey. So it's just really great to see. And we're just getting going.
Yeah, so you brought up a good point, which is, I think, one of the big factors. Obviously, Leon Draisaitl with a fantastic first-round series, just dominant. I believe 2 points
on the ice for like every goal.
Yeah, 2 points a game on average, and just made a big difference. Again, one of the values of having a dual threat up front, where the teams want to double team McDavid because of the danger he poses, and it always leaves an open space. I actually thought it was very clever of Woodcroft to do something we haven't seen him do almost all year, which was double them up again, put them on that top line. You can see how they're actually more valuable in that position to each other because they act as decoys for each other. You just don't have enough men on the ice to defend a line like that. Elliot, we talked about the depth, though. Braden brought up Klim Kostin. I know there's some other guys For you, who stood out the most in this series outside of the obvious McDavid and Draisaitl?
There's a couple for me. I mean, I think Bouchard is one of them. Klim Kostin, like you mentioned, got to give a shout out to Yamamoto with the series clinching goal. But for me, it was really the back end as a whole and as a group and as a unit. At different times, different people stepped up, not offensively but defensively. We saw Kulak be the best player on the ice one night. Ekholm did Ekholm things. Darnell Nurse, while not scoring, continued to be just a mean person to play against and against a fairly heavy grind you out kind of team like LA is. You need a strong defensive core. If there was one weakness on the team, you might be pointing to the defense. They really stood out.
Vinny Darnay.
Yeah, that's a tough one, and obviously that'll be a storyline going forward. You do have a rookie defenseman. You're gonna anticipate he's going to be exposed a couple times. It did feel like he definitely became
more than a couple.
Well, he became a bit of a liability in a couple of those games, and it was interesting to see how they deployed him. But 11-on-7 is a great way to be able to share some of those minutes and hide him when necessary. And Broberg, I thought, actually played pretty well for the most part as a guy who we haven't seen a lot of throughout the rest of the year. Just a stat for you to blow your minds here, guys. Yes, they lose 2 games in this series, but in the last 21 games, in fact, it has been 21 games since the Edmonton Oilers lost in regulation. They are 18-0 and 3. 3 overtime losses is all they have in the last 21 games. That is phenomenal, obviously. And it shows you the confidence this team is playing with. LA couldn't beat them in regulation. They were down. The Oilers were down 3-0 in one game, came back to come all the way back and win that hockey game. And when you have a team that's capable of doing that, you know that series are never done. You know, you lose a game, maybe you have a bad break. Look at the bad break there with Skinner at the end of that game. A couple years ago, and on a lot of other teams, that would be like the nail. That would be the kind of thing where the team kind of falls apart. I'm sure they looked at each other on the bench and just sort of laughed. We're like, really? What's it going to take us to win this hockey game? But the confidence is there.
It's amazing that just to jump in on that, like Skinner let in some very questionable goals early in the series, and
rookie goalie.
The fact that it broke, I didn't see it. I could not see that as being a broken stick for the longest time. I was like, how is this happening again to an Edmonton goaltender? But for them to be able to rally and finish out was like, oh, thank God, the easiest goal Dano's ever scored.
I mean, I think the turning point in the series is the second period where they came back and they got the 3 goals and tied. From that moment forward, I mean, were they always the best team on the ice? Absolutely not. And LA did outplay them in game 5, I felt, or game 4, sorry. But on the whole, that's what's shifted. It was from that moment forward, the Oilers won 3 straight games, and that was the part of it, right? Like I was
surprised at how like underwhelmingly physical this series was. I really didn't anticipate that.
I'm not surprised. I think there was a very physical game 1, game 2, and both teams got punished with penalties, and both teams could punish each other on the power play.
Yeah, so 2 deadly power plays.
That definitely changed both. I think the game plan for both teams.
Let's talk for a second about some of the unsung heroes who didn't make necessarily a score sheet impact, but I wanted to point out one guy because for me, I thought he was an absolute critical part of how this team stayed in games when they were either down or when they were holding on to that 1-point lead. And that was Warren Foegele, a guy who I think has gotten much maligned over his time here for not quite like living up to the very high expectations that were placed on him when he joined this hockey team. But Warren Foegele, for me, every single time he was on the ice was making things happen. Great forecheck, pushing pucks deep, making sure that when we were chasing in a game, he was getting pucks to the net or to teammates to the net for opportunities. How many times did he either ring a post or come, inches from scoring? It was kind of one of those things where he epitomized in so many ways the metaphor that Jay Woodcroft used earlier in the season or earlier in the series, which was, we're just going to keep hitting this rock and eventually it's going to crack. You felt like for Warren Foegele, if this series had gone to game 7, he was like that one game away. The hope is he can carry that into the next round, because if he keeps playing like this for the Oilers, I think he is a very essential playoff type player where he may not score more than 1 or 2 goals all playoffs, but every single shift he is out there, he is generating energy, he is generating momentum, he is generating important minutes. And I for me, he was one of the standout players outside again of those elite players that were. I mean, Draisaitl wins the series, but a lot can be said for some of the unsung guys.
Well, and I think everyone had their game, right? Like when I was going back to the defense, like there was that game where Kulak was outstanding. There was several games or periods where Fogle was amazing. Klim Kostin, 3 massive goals. Who had Klim Kostin scoring, a game winner, let alone, nearly 2.
100%.
But also Jack Campbell, like the fact that our backup got in there. I agree that Skinner's the guy, and you go back to him. But I would have been just as satisfied had Jack Campbell started that next game.
I saw something crazy like in the series. 18 Oilers have a point, and both goalies have a win. And I think that's
huge. Fantastic.
That's great. Let's table the Oilers for just a second. We will talk more about them in the second topic when we get to round 2. But let's just quickly run around the rest of the first round. We know a lot of them, and Elliot can hold us accountable for some of our bold and bizarre picks. Let's talk about what we saw tonight before we talk about the Leafs. Let's just talk about what happened in Boston. Just an absolute, just like literally, I think you have to go back to Columbus beating Tampa for a more heavily favored team losing in the first round. I mean, Boston set the all-time NHL record for wins in the regular season. They came in as 100-1 favorites. It's insane how good they were, and they all season. And yet, right from the beginning of the series, you could see that something just wasn't quite right. They had goaltending that I felt maybe Ullmark was hurt, not quite feeling well. I know there were some bugs going around that team, but Florida, man, they hung around, even being down 3-1. They battle back in a hockey game. They battle back every game, chasing leads that were chasing opportunities that should never have been there, scoring important goals late in hockey games with the net pulled, like scrappy, competitive. It goes a lot to the coaching there. Paul Maurice is, in my opinion, one of the best 10 coaches we've seen in the last decade. A phenomenal coaching job to keep that team matched up well against Boston, and Boston didn't have an answer. They win it in overtime today. Florida wins it in game 7, and they're moving on. And that's a storyline to continue to watch, because I wouldn't want to play that team. They've got that like Cinderella magic on them now. Elliot, I don't know if you watched the hockey game tonight, but I know you watched some of the series leading up to it. How surprised are you that Florida's moving through, and what do you think the ramifications are? Is this the end for Bergeron?
So I think, first of all, did watch the game the overtime tonight. Saw that it was 3-3. Shocked that it was 3-3. Florida tied it up with a goal, a minute left.
Less than a minute, yes.
Yeah, which is crazy. And so shocked and surprised. I mean, we all had Boston, Braden in 4, Jordan in 5, me in 6. So we all got this one wrong. I think the entire hockey world got this one wrong.
I would be very shocked if you didn't live in Sunrise, Florida, if you were anyone outside of there was given any stock to the Panthers.
100%.
Maybe one household in St. Louis that the Tkachuk parents live in. That might have been it.
I think this is a massive sports story, this collapse, and the way that this team, what's happened with Boston. But I mean, what is playoff hockey ultimately about? I think it's about how you deal with adversity and adversity. And when you're a team that's had the success that Boston has had this year, they haven't had to deal with a lot of adversity. And as soon as things started to kind of come apart after the devastating Game 5 loss, where they could have clinched it and Ullmark gave it up in the corner, it just, what Florida managed to do was plant a seed of doubt, and that seed bloomed into a flower of despair. And that's ultimately what happened here. Boston was not able to overcome adversity, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact they just not had to face any this year.
Yeah.
Is that what you think it came down to, Braden? Was just the experience level here? We had a team that went in maybe a little overconfident.
Playoff hockey, I think it comes down to exactly what Elliot said. You can never rule a team out, and you've got 7 games to make it happen, and they did. We're forgetting that this was a President Trophy team last year. Like, Florida is there; they have the weapons, and we've all seen in Western Canada what Matthew Tkachuk can do on the ice. So, I mean, it is an epic collapse just around the story of it being a team that has set a a league-wide record it's insane. It's good for narrative, it's good for the sport, and it's gonna be, I think, ultimately good for the Leafs. That's like I mean, I don't think they were looking forward to playing Boston, even if Boston wasn't the top team this year.
The team I mentioned earlier, the thing I referenced earlier with Tampa Bay, the Columbus Blue Jackets swept Tampa Bay in 2019. Tampa Bay was the first seed. Columbus was the 8th seed, lowest in the division, I guess, conference. I'm not sure whether we had conference play or whatever, not back then. Regardless, point being, same goaltender both times, Sergei Bobrovsky. That's an interesting storyline.
That's interesting.
Not that Sergei Bobrovsky was the entire difference tonight, because I think you got to give Florida's offense a lot of credit. In overtime, they pushed and dictated the terms. They definitely led the scoring chances in overtime. Once they got in there, they made it. They made their opportunities count and just took it to Boston there. But Bobrovsky came into this series. He did not start it. He came into this series later. Veteran presence, huge contract, lots of expectations his whole time in Florida. And this is definitely one of those redeeming moments for him where he said, look, I came here to win you some important games. And here we are to going to the second round. And it could be really interesting.
We gotta talk about one of your first questions there about Patrice Bergeron. This is absolutely his last game. Like if you watched it, he was hugging every single player on the ice on their way out, and as Marchand gave him a hug, like he broke into tears.
Yeah, it looked like that.
The fans, an amazing career, one of the best defensive players to ever play the game. Like he was a perennial sulky guy, and it's a sad ending, but great career for Patrice.
Elliot, run us around the rest of the first round here. Just let us, score keep for us. Tell us where we were and where we weren't wrong. Obviously, we're still waiting on the Seattle score. It's still 2-1 in that hockey game, and we don't know the results of the New Jersey one. So, but tell us about the other ones. We've got the Hurricanes Islanders. Hurricanes obviously winning that one.
Yeah, so what I've done here is I've assigned 1 point for if you selected the right team, and you got an additional point if you selected in the right games, regardless of the outcomes in either New York or New York, Jersey, Seattle, Colorado. I will have won this round. They don't call it Tanty polling for nothing. Carolina and New York Islanders. Jordan, you had the Islanders in 6. Obviously, that's not true.
Nope.
Carolina wins in 6. Braden had them in 5, and I had them in 7.
Oh, what the hell?
All right, so 1 point each for that. Next, we have the Devils, Rangers. We don't know. The Leafs, Lightning.
Well, what we do know, it's crazy that.
So on the Devils and Rangers front, just as you did have New York Rangers in 7, Jordan, so you can get 2 points.
Oh, interesting.
That would bring you above Braden. Otherwise, you guys will end up tied.
Okay.
That's the next one. What was the next one you want to talk about?
Well, let's go Leafs Lightning.
Leafs Lightning was very interesting. Jordan, you had Tampa Bay in that one in 6, so unfortunately no point for you there. Braden had Toronto in 7. I had Toronto in 5. Toronto won in 6. Another one of those.
Nice. Let's just spend a quick second on these, as I promised we would. So we probably have 1 or 2 people who listen that are Leafs fans, maybe. Regardless, big story. Obviously, we talked about it going into this series. This is a team that has not made it out of the first round since 2004. That is a heck of a long time to wait when you are arguably the largest hockey market in the world. Huge fan base, lots of anticipation every single year, and a lot of devastation every single year, but they find a way to make it happen. They slay their dragon. The Lightning have been the team they've had to face the last few years and can't get over that hump, but they're through. Question is, I don't know how much you watched of it. I'm not going to suggest that, but what you've watched and knowing now that they've gotten over that first hurdle, how do the Leafs make sure that it isn't sort of a one and done thing where all of that energy is spent just to get over that first hump? And do you think, having watched what you've seen, that they're good enough to do that, Elliot?
Yeah, Samsonov was a difference maker in that series. I ended up watching a lot of it. It was the off day for the Oilers, and I like the early games. It's a fun thing to do while making dinner and stuff like that. So I ended up seeing a lot of this series. And I think Toronto is dangerous. And I think now with a little bit of confidence, they could go on a bit of a run here. Plus, they got lucky with the Boston-Florida series. So I think it's a good time to be a Leafs fan. I'm just praying for that Maple Leafs Oilers Stanley Cup final.
Eesh, that would be
Why?
crazy. Well,
You're
it'd be great for
insane.
Canada.
It would be
It'd be
insane. Yeah,
insane.
that's Gary Bettman's worst nightmare. Um, Braden, what did you see, and what do you think? Do the Leafs for real here?
Well, they for real are in the playoffs still after the first round. So kudos and good job. I think anything that happens now is, gravy for Leafs fans. Obviously, they want to keep this thing going and make it as far as they can. But I think if they were to get bounced out of the second round, they would still look at this as quite a success.
All right,
Uh,
we'll talk about their matchup with the Panthers in a second. Elliot, obviously, none of us had the Panthers. We all
No.
had the Bruins, so no points for that series. Let's talk Golden Knights Jets.
Yeah, this was a good one for me. Braden unfortunately had Winnipeg, so no points there.
started
Jordan,
out good.
you had Vegas in 7. I had Vegas in 5. Obviously, Vegas wins in 5, so there's 2 points there.
Bingo.
Wow.
Oilers Kings. Remind us of our picks.
Yeah, this one was good for you, Jordan. We all had Edmonton, so we all get a point there. Braden in 4, me in 5, and Jordan in 6. And it was Edmonton in 6, so Jordan's got 2 there.
There you go. Stars Wild.
Stars Wild, we all missed on this one. We all had
Yeesh.
Minnesota in either 6 or 7, and
Yeah.
Dallas wins in 6. So no points there for us. That didn't look great for the show.
Now, just remind
Especially
us.
because we kept talking about the goaltending in that one. It was like the goaltending for the Wild they're just so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Now, just remind us because there's 4 minutes left in this hockey game, so we're gonna know, but midway through the second topic here in a second when we're talking whether they're going to overtime or it's over. The Kraken's still leading 2-1. Remind me again of our picks.
So this one, Braden is still live for 2 points. We all have Colorado. Jordan in 6, me in 5. Braden had Colorado in 7. So actually, I could be wrong about the New York series impacting this. My math might be a little bit off here. But Braden is still live for 2 points in that one. If the
All
game,
right.
But I want Seattle to win so bad.
Yeah, you'd rather lose that one at the end of the day. All right. That is our rundown of the first round. We will leave it there and we will talk about the second round in a moment.
Topic 2 this week is brought to us by Ellipses Thinking. Ellipses Thinking is the newest podcast from the Ordinary Podcasting Network. Host Greg Deller-Coltman shares his conversations with people actively engaged in their own creative adventures, those who identify as artists, and those who choose to experience life through an artistic lens. They shed light on relationships that shape and inspire us as we meet the challenges, discoveries, and learnings we make when we courageously invite our creative spirit forth. You can subscribe or follow anywhere you get your podcasts.
All right, let's do it. Here comes the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We know a few things and we don't know others. Let's start with the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. We know this. The Oilers will start on the road in Vegas. They have not left LA. They practiced today in LA. I believe they travel today or tomorrow to Vegas. So they will treat like an extended road trip, probably for the best considering the chaos that has occurred at home. Better for them not to have to fly home and then fly back to Vegas. I think it's just good, convenient timing for them. We have a bit of a history, I suppose, throughout the regular season to look at here. We have 3-1 as the record for the Oilers versus the Golden Knights. The big question marks for the Golden Knights this playoffs have been goaltending, but they were able to pull off a pretty convincing series win against the Jets. The question is, do the Oilers have the firepower to match the Knights? And this is obviously a very different matchup than what we just saw, where the LA Kings are a very defense first team. The Golden Knights are not that, but they do have very offensive defensemen who can make who can jump up into the rush and make a big difference. Braden, you look at this matchup, knowing what you know, feeling what you feel. How do you feel about the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers round 2?
Just as uncertain as I did with the Kings. There's a very good hockey team. They finished first in the Pacific for a reason. They have been good for some time. The thing that I see as one of their weaknesses probably is goaltending. Brossoit has been fairly good in the playoffs as of late, but I think that's a bit of a difference in terms of what we have been facing in the first round. So beyond that, man, like they have a lot of firepower. So, you don't want to give up too many pucks on rushes to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Elliot, how do you feel about facing the Knights?
Good. I think it's going to be a hell of a series. These are two high-flying teams. I think they're the best teams in the division for sure. Best teams coming down the stretch for sure. And so that's great. It's best on best. Would I be rather than be playing someone else? Obviously. But, I think it's going to be a fun series. I think it's going to be a long series either way. And I think goaltending is a good question. I mean, I think health is always a question too. How well is Mark Stone? What is going on with Connor McDavid? These are the questions. I think it's really the second round series where you really see injuries start to kind of pile up and impact and do enough to actually impact outcomes for series. And so, I think that's going to be a big piece of this as well. And can the Oilers maintain? If the Oilers are able to maintain their depth scoring like they have, they did against LA, they're going to outscore most of their opponents, and that includes the Golden Knights as well.
Braden, I think that you bring up the interesting thing about Laurent Brossoit. The thing that I think is interesting about it, though, is it's like the Edmonton Oilers all year long have found ways to get that secondary score going. And I feel like Laurent Brossoit is one of those goalies who, if you can get to him early in hockey games, I feel like he just doesn't have the same experience as some other guys. And sure, Skinner's in his first post, but Skinner is such a steady goaltender. I guess the other question, and this is sort of a weird one, but like, do the Oilers have a better scouting report on a guy like Laurent Brossoit, considering they did the first 5 years of his development and a lot of these guys
so too would
with
the Jets, right? That he's played for the Jets for the last few years as well. I mean,
the Jets are a different hockey team than the Edmonton Oilers.
They are. Yeah.
Offensively.
Yeah. I do still think it's a considerable downgrade to what we saw in Korpisalo. I think that's going to be the gap.
All right, Elliot, you got your pen ready? Let's make some picks here, boys. Braden, who do you have?
Oilers in 6. I gotta give them a little more time to sink in. I do think it's going to be a tough battle, especially those home games. Like Vegas plays pretty well at home.
Elliot,
hold on, I'm making my graph here. You go first.
Oh, okay. I'll take the Oilers, and I was going to say 6. So can I say 6, even though he's saying 6? Screw it. I'll say the Oilers in 5. They beat the Flames last year in 5. They lost one game and then went on to win 4 in a row. Remember, this is a team that hasn't lost in regulation in 21 games. I feel pretty confident in this hockey team in terms of how if they can get out early against this team. The other thing for me, and I didn't say this a minute ago, but like the Vegas Golden Knights play a very similar style to the Oilers. It's very wide open. I think that actually plays more into the Oilers' favor. Remember, this is the top scoring team in the league, and they will exploit opportunities for odd man rushes, and I think they have a better chance of capitalizing on that. The key for the Oilers will be defense, whether or not they can stop Eichel and Stone and
Marchessault.
And there are very talented players out there, but as we saw in the regular season, not only did they have a 3-1 advantage in the games they played, but even that game late in the season, they really shut down the Golden Knights, and I think that they will be able to do that again. All right, Elliot, now it's your turn. You can't get away from it.
Yeah, I also like Edmonton in 6. And so I'm going to take Edmonton in 6. And Jordan, if you want to make Edmonton in 6 too, that's fine as well. I think we can have the same numbers if we want.
I'm sticking with 5. I'm confident.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I'm confident. Anybody, Braden? I know you're watching the Seattle game as well. Did you notice that Georgiev has changed his helmet? That's just a weird side.
He's also on the bench currently.
Who's in net then?
Well, no one, because they've just pulled their goal.
Oh, I'm behind, clearly. I think that they pulled him. Now he's been pulled in my game. Anyway, I might be a second behind because I'm watching on the phone. Elliot,
well, as a goaltender, like how much does that change your game?
I don't know. It's just interesting because I've acknowledged multiple times during this year, I think he has one of the nicer buckets. It's like this chrome silver helmet with the Avalanche logo done in like pixel dots. Nice. And here it's now red and blue with pixel dot, but they're white. So I don't know if it broke or he had an issue with it or he changed it. Anyway, let's jump to the next series. We know we have a few series we know, but let's jump to the next one that we were just talking about. Toronto, Florida. Big takeaways we've already discussed kind of, but when you look at the matchup now for this, Elliot, Florida obviously comes in with a heck of a lot of mojo, having just beaten Boston. But matchup wise, you have to think this still favors the Maple Leafs because they are the more offensive team.
Yeah, I mean, after the celebration that was what occurred in Toronto after their victory. I imagine something very similar is happening in Florida right now too. And I usually go against the team that has that sort of big celebratory first round win in the second round because a lot of their energy's gone. But both teams have had that happen. So this is going to be really, really, really interesting. Man, Torontonians are going to hate Kachuk, and I'm going to love watching them have to deal with him. I am going to take Toronto in this series. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs have a bit of a run in them. And I'm still, like I said, I'm hoping for that Toronto Edmonton final. So I'll take Toronto, and I'm going to take Toronto in 6 games.
All right. Braden?
I also think Kachuk's going to do something silly in this next round, and I'm going to take Florida in 7. I do think it's going to go long.
Man, the Florida Panthers are going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
Come time for the Eastern Conference final. I will take the Toronto Maple Leafs in 5. I think that they are the better team. I think that they have had a better goaltender. Florida's had to use both guys. Yes, Florida survives Boston, but I also think that they got in Boston's head. I do think it will be another very physical series. We saw how both their series and the Toronto series against Tampa were very, very violent. They got ugly. And I think that could devolve again here. We have some players who like to get under their opponent's skin. I think Florida will win one game because of that. And they will sort of get under them. But I really think this is Toronto's moment to as Elliot said, go on a bit of a run. I had Toronto going to the Eastern Conference final because I thought they would beat Boston in the second round anyway. But I don't know now how I feel about that because I think
I thought you had Tampa Bay in the first round.
I did, but in my heart, I had
in my
Toronto.
heart. Yeah,
So,
no,
okay,
yeah, swinging back now.
Go back to our
Just
preview.
kidding.
Go back to our preview and listen to what I said about Toronto. I, as an Oilers fan, want the Toronto Maple Leafs to go on a long run because it takes a lot of pressure off the Edmonton Oilers.
You're just
all the attention,
that to soften
all the
blow
attention
with your buddy Tyler.
All the attention will be on the Toronto Maple Leafs in the media. It's the truth.
It
takes a lot of pressure off the Edmonton Oilers to have another Canadian team in there with them for a little bit of a run, I believe. So I'm going to take Toronto in 5. Look, I'm way more confident than you.
I like Toronto in 5. I almost said Toronto in 5, so I like the gutsy pick there. That's a good gutsy pick.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you very much. All right. What we're about to find out here. I mean, do we just wait 30 seconds?
No, it's over. Sorry, guys. It's over.
Oh, you're watching live. Seattle won it.
Yeah. That's
Dang.
Remarkable.
All right. Well, let's spend a second on that. Now, this is now breaking news. Let's talk about this. The Seattle Kraken, second year as an expansion team. They take out the reigning Stanley Cup champions.
Wow.
Phenomenal. So we know now that they will play Dallas. How do we feel about a Seattle-Dallas second round series?
Well, much better than a Colorado-Dallas series. I'll tell you that much. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Both of those teams probably didn't expect to make it to the second round, and here they are. I mean, certainly not Seattle. This is the first expansion team to ever beat a defending champion. There's a lot of energy coming at that Dallas Stars team, and they were good. Like Seattle went on a mad run in the season. Like this is a team that's really clicking.
Yeah,
something special is happening in Seattle right now.
So. Let's make some picks now. We know who's there. We've got Seattle and we've got Dallas. Who do you got, Braden?
I'm taking the Seattle team. I honestly think that there's something really, really special about to happen. Dallas has a lot of veterans.
Don't do this to me. The Oilers are playing Seattle, and I live an hour away. This is gonna get real hard.
I love it.
How many games?
Seattle. I'm going to take Seattle in 6 games.
Elliot.
Oh, I so badly want to take Seattle, but I don't think I'm going to. I think this Dallas team has got something about it too. I was concerned about their speed. Their speed ended up not being an issue in the first round. There's a lot of older guys there. A lot of guys that have been wanting it for a long time. They went on a run in the bubble.
Not just a run. They went to the finals.
Yeah. The
core of this team has been to the finals, losing 100%. To Tampa.
That's why I really like them. So I'm going to take Dallas, and I'm going to take Dallas in 5 games.
Can I ask, is Joe Pavelski still out?
I think is he? Yeah, he may never play hockey again. That was a brutal hit.
Ooh, I don't know about that. I don't want to say in a take like that there, Jordan.
It was pretty ugly, buddy. It's also been the third time he's
2
been
days
knocked
ago,
unconscious.
Pavelski looks good and may return for game 6. Okay, so I can't listen to anything you say ever again.
I don't think Pavelski should
will
play ever again.
Never
is what I'm
play
saying.
again. Jordan
Hot
will
take.
never play again.
Hot
Joe,
take.
Joe Pavelski
Day-to-day.
should never play contact sports
It is
again.
concussion. Yeah, it's
His
concussion.
third
Yeah, and Sidney Crosby's still playing, Jordan.
one.
Sid has had more than one concussion.
One. He had severe post-concussion syndrome, and he was not knocked unconscious on the ice 3 times. I'm just saying, with what we know now,
In the playoffs, no
he
less.
should not be playing. Anyway, all right, so I'll take Dallas. I will take Dallas, and I will take Dallas in 6. I agree with Elliot. I think this team's got a core that knows how to win because they've been to the finals, and they've got a very hot young goaltender who is playing very well again for the second straight year in the playoffs. And I think that the way they played against Winnipeg showed me that they're ready for a chance and they're going to push for it. This could be another fun series, though, man. Seattle could just be a little shit disturber. This could be great.
Speaking of shit disturbers, we need to step back here. We need a serious fact checker on our show because Sidney Crosby has 4 concussions in his NHL career.
That's what I said.
Shut the fuck up, Jordan. What
that's
the hell
what I said.
Are you talking about? With such conviction, 1.
Watch what it says in the edit. Wait till the edit. You see how good it sounds in the edit.
4.
Yeah, it'll 4. All right.
Someone else's voice.
Look, at the end of the day, if you're gonna bullshit, you got to do it with such confidence.
Yeah, but I can see it. And so can our listeners.
As far as I know, Joe Pavelski is actually he's already retired. He's moved on. I think he's coaching in Europe already.
Was last week. Come on.
He's coaching at the World Championships. I don't know what you're talking about. He's moved on. He owns
if
4
Joe
car
Pavelski
dealerships.
comes back, the Dallas Stars have a serious chance at
Joe Pavelski will never play hockey again. He starts game 1.
I picked the Dallas Stars. I didn't say who I thought was scoring the game winner.
Yeah. No, please don't.
This is the tricky one. We can't really make a prediction on this. We've got the Hurricanes and the Devils or Rangers.
I cannot believe this is a game 7.
Yo, you guys, I literally last weekend bet my life on New York winning this series.
Dude, we're so bad at predictions and knowing any facts on sports.
That one was bad. So yeah, I let's just hold off. We can just do that off air. We can update the listeners.
Right, sounds good.
Still think of Carolina.
Great way to hold us accountable. All right, let's move on. Then that was it. That is topic 2. All right, we're gonna do hats off, and I want to make sure one thing's very clear here, Braden. I have facts. They're written down. These were researched from one source on the internet. All right.
Yeah, hit me. Who are you?
I'm taking my hat off this week to Drew Maggi of the Pittsburgh Pirates. 33-year-old rookie made his major league debut at 33 years old.
Oh,
he has been in the minors for 13 years.
Oh my God.
Toiling away, working as hard as he can. April 16th, he got up to the bigs. He had 1 hit. They treated it like they'd won the World Series, but for that brief moment, he had his moment, and they've already sent him back down to AA. My hat goes off to him because, look, it's about perseverance. It's about sticking with it. Look at a guy like Vinny Desharnais. How long did he play in the minors before he got his shot?
Yeah,
but that's
pretty sweet.
A lot harder in baseball because there's always new guys, younger guys who are going to take that one position you play. And give him a lot of credit. He got up there, made his hit, got his moment. Maybe he'll be back up again. We don't know. Hats off, Drew Maggi. Elliot, who are you taking your hat to?
Yeah, my hat goes off this week to my San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants, who did this sort of fun series in Mexico. Yeah, they did. They played a 2-game series in Mexico City, showcasing the game out there. But last night was a treat. The final score was 16-11. So it was just a
Wait, for who?
Yeah. For obviously my great Padres.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm raising this. But anyway, what an event. That is 27 runs between the 2 teams in 1 game.
Very impressive.
Not exactly a defensive outing I think either team would have wanted, but
if I had said that score, Braden wouldn't have believed me.
No, not at all. No. I have to go check it.
That's a really good one, Elliot. You're taking your hat off to both the Padres and the Giants. Braden.
I'm going to be tipping my hat off to Sir Jimmy Butler, who like absolutely went off in the NBA first round against the first seeded Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis's pride and team. He did some incredible things. Like he took over games, I think, unlike we have seen since a player played for the Bulls. Just averaging some ridiculous numbers: 56 points, 42 points, 35 points. Like he went insane, and I don't think he's going to be stopping anytime soon. So let's see what the Miami Heat can cook up for the rest of the NBA playoffs. But tip my hat off to Jimmy Butler.
Just had one final thought here on the Seattle Kraken as we've just realized this is happening and it's all kind of settling in. If they beat Dallas, the Pacific Division has just destroyed everybody else because they go in there as the wild card. They had no business being in the Central, and here they are knocking off the defending champs. This is crazy. It's fantastic. It's great. And look, we've got one more Game 7. We'll talk about it and all of what has happened in the beginning of the second round next week. Until then, thank you for listening. Follow us on Instagram, or you can find out more about this show and all the other shows from across our network on the Ordinary Podcasting Network's website, which is ordinarypodcasts.com. Tomorrow, if you're a Formula One fan, Formula One is back. We have had about a 3-week break, but the Azerbaijan Grand Prix took place this weekend. Tyler and myself will give you all of our thoughts and opinions on what was an absolutely ridiculous, busy, and a wild weekend in Azerbaijan. That will be tomorrow. Look for that anywhere you get your podcasts. That's the Pit Stop Podcast. Until next time, on behalf of Braden and Elliot Tanti.
Viva la Red Bull. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, long live Red Bull.
This has been another edition of Hat Trick. Hat Trick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dowler-Coltman and Braden Dowler-Coltman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network wishes to acknowledge that the lands on which our conversations take place include Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and the Nakota Sioux peoples, as well as the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. And we extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live, create, and share stories on these territories.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network intends to engage in conversations and dialogue which acknowledge that reconciliation is not a destination, but a journey, and that we remain committed to practicing our craft in a decolonized space.